I don't think designers are gonna go extinct. I think the kind of designers that exist today might. The sort of like quick and cheap layer of design is basically gone.
We were very
We're very
skeptical
skeptical.
at the beginning of the project, and you
And not
convinced
very
us.
humble, right?
Not very
we
humble,
cannot,
probably.
you cannot replace us, you know what I mean?
That was partly because we were quite ignorant about AI, but also because we believe we couldn't be automated. But we discovered that was the case. Before starting, we considered AI as a time-saving tool, increase efficiency, decrease headcounts or hours that we spend on work. The big surprise is that not only it's saving time, but that it's actually increasing the output that we can deliver.
We just added 400 hours of strategy to our project. Now we can reflect that on our price, going up, not going down. But we just 10x the amount and the depth of what we do without necessarily actually doing it ourselves. Intention and creative discernment is something you should not outsource. We ended up not using AI to do less, to work less hours, and so we used AI to produce more quality, more volume, more output. That's the mindset shift that can be helpful for creative firms.
I think it helped tremendously that you have a design background.
This project forced us to look at what we are not doing and not doing well. Now we can do a lot better work than we used to. So, yeah, that was an interesting roller coaster for me.
We're actually preparing a drastic price increase for the next quarter.
Do you want to leave that in the video? Okay. Yeah, Nowthen is a design studio, and we work mostly with startups that are ready to scale and who, in order to do so, need to upgrade their brand or their product. So yeah, it's mostly what we do. And it's the two of us plus a really cool team of, well, it's fluctuating, but I would say around 8 people that are mostly based around Japan, but also a little bit across the world. Yeah.
When did you start it?
We started in 2023, so it's been 2 years and a half now.
What are you like focused on right now?
I think we focus on balancing speed and quality, as the startups we're serving are funded early stage startups, so from C to Series A. We help them to go beyond the early stage to scale acquisition. So they need a certain level of quality that's drastically different from what they had before. We're not in the MVP phase anymore, but at the same time, they still need to move at a startup pace. And for us, it's really important to have all these processes in place so that we can deliver something quickly, but still qualitative and as good as something that you do if you were at a much later stage.
In addition, I think we're also quite focused on growing our own business. So in ourselves, actually recruiting more customers and also more people to work with, like growing our team, so that we can serve more startups. So that's something we're actually trying to do, yeah. Interestingly, what we started with and what we ended up with is quite different. So your question is about how it started. So I think it started initially as, I think, two things. The first thing was mostly an automation project. So trying to, as Apolline said, to gain speed without compromising quality. And the second one was a little bit of an experiment. We know this AI thing's here and it's here to stay and it's changing our industry. And we've been experimenting with a few ways to integrate AI into our processes, but we thought we needed to do this a little bit more thoroughly and a bit more in a structured manner. So I think that project was an opportunity to do this. And when I say that it started like that, but it ended up being something a little bit different, we can maybe get into the detail of that later, but it was less about speed, I think, and a lot more about quality.
Before starting, we considered AI as a time-saving tool. So really something to increase efficiency and maybe decrease headcounts or hours that we spend on work. And I think the big surprise is that not only the projects at the agent we came up with, it's saving time, but that it's actually increasing the output that we can deliver.
Can you explain maybe how?
It's enabling us to do something that we were not offering before, I would say. So the agent that we built is a brand strategy agent. It enables us to deliver in a couple of minutes, a quite in-depth brand strategy plan with target research, persona explorations, concept explorations, and a solid brand concept that we can use to build brand identities and also to build brand strategies for startups. And this is something we were not doing all the time because we work with early stage startups that need to have a ready to launch identity in a couple of weeks. And you cannot spend weeks on the brand strategy part. And with this tool now, we can actually do this every time. We used to do it only when we had the bandwidth, we had the budget. We can now do it. We can do it every time, even if it's just a website project. You need to deliver a website in 4 weeks, but you can still deliver as well. You can build this on the solid strategic base.
I mean, without giving our secret sauce to the world? No. Well, we're quite public with our processes and so on, but basically together with Boris and Soft, we created a brand strategy agent. It starts with a brief that we're extracting from conversations we have with our clients to really frame what is this company about, what are their challenges, who are they targeting, and so on. And it ends with creative concept. So creative concept is basically creative idea and then a little bit more explanation. It has a few boxes, and I think this is a kind of framework that's proprietary to us. And then it goes through, I think, 6 or 7 steps to go from brief to creative idea, and that includes some research. So I would say a little bit holistic research, so from researching the persona, so the target audience, but also the industry, the ecosystem, competitors, and so on, and also a little bit more, I would say, trends and zeitgeist and what's hot in the world right now. So that's the research part, and then it synthesizes into brand ideas, basically, following a framework that we've designed. Yeah, right. That's what it does. I think so. I don't look under the hood anymore. So first of all, we're working with startups. What startup needs and what larger companies need is very different. I think that that's the starting point to all secret sauce, in the sense that we're working with clients who don't have the same problematics. So whatever we design and the workflow we have for the agent might not be working for a big organization with thousands and hundreds of customers or a lot of different products and so on. So startups have their own problems. And what we think the biggest problem of a startup is usually it's not understood, it's not trusted, and it's because it's a new technology, it's a new player, and it's also usually the typical startup mistake is that it tends to be very rational and very dry in terms of communication. And so our angle into what makes a good startup brand is how well it can connect with its target audience. Can it tap into something that goes beyond the capabilities of your technology, and tap a little bit more into what people want to be and people want to experience as humans. And that's what we use. That's what we call a magnetic ID, basically. And that's what we use as the heart of our framework.
Our secret sauce, or I would say our distinctive features, is that our methodology is tailor-made for the needs of startups. And you would think you can take methods used for big brands, established brands, and just make it leaner and shorter, and that would work. But that's another caveat. It doesn't work because established brands, they are known, they have name power, and their main challenge is to beat competition, just like connect on a different level. They don't really need to be understood, they don't really need to be explicit. The really difficult thing with startups is they can't be over rational, but they can't be overly abstract either. So we need to hit this sweet spot. It's super clear what we do, but we're not just a piece of technology, because people don't care about technology. People don't care about what they're gonna be, what they're gonna do if they purchase this product. And this is the sweet spot we think is really important, and this is I think what we can achieve with this method.
This kind of like identity aspiration, that you are allowing the person who gets in touch with the product or with the brand, that they have the feeling they can transform their own identity, they can become something that they want to become.
Our theory, it's not a theory, it's our from our experience, A powerful startup brand or a powerful brand needs to fulfill a human aspiration. And when I say human aspiration, is a fundamental aspiration to be someone else. So it's not something like it's not something as vague as I wanna work faster or I wanna be more efficient. It's I wanna become this person. And maybe you're already this person and you need reinforcement. Maybe you're very far from this person and you need help to fill this gap. But brands that are loved by people or that are irresistible, and products that sell even though they're expensive or they have competition, and they really fulfill this aspiration. And we think if a startup can find this aspiration and enable this person to get closer to this aspirational self, it becomes way easier to sell the product or service or tech they're selling.
Funny is that the AI is telling us what a human aspiration is.
Like, yes and no. I mean, it Googles it basically, right? so, you know, what I mean, like, it's not too far from what we would do. I mean, we might talk to people a little bit more, and they might read reports a little bit more. But yeah, I understand the joke.
Yeah, AI is, the way I see it, is collective intelligence, right? It's not like me, Apolline, I already know every single human aspiration. I need to talk to a lot of people, I need to read a lot of stuff, and AI can do this for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Apolline touched on that at the beginning of this conversation. So I think we're doing extremely lean research and strategy. I would say we're trying to constrain ourselves to a few hours. If you put it's like basically a day to do this, and that limits basically the depth of what we could do. And now how it's reframed it is that we do maybe 10 times more, except we don't do it. We let the AI do it, and we can review the summary and ask it to maybe sometime do better. So that's how it's reshaped it, to be honest. But we just 10x the amount and the depth of what we do without necessarily actually doing it ourselves. Does that answer your question? Do you want to add something?
Like, you previously didn't do it because...
We didn't do it, and now we do it.
Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it before? Because the clients wouldn't pay for it necessarily, or... How would you...
I wouldn't say we didn't do it. I would say it's more this sort of MVP approach, right? It's like we are doing this really strict minimum necessary to be able to come up with good branding ideas. And now we just do a lot more and a lot deeper, which means we come up with even better ideas and more of them. Yeah.
From the outside, our offering hasn't really changed. It's like you're buying your favorite like cereal pack, and actually
turns out now they're organic.
Now loaded with like organic stuff and good stuff that didn't have it before.
And they are made in the factory.
Exactly. And it tastes a lot better as well. But it looks the same from the outside.
Yeah, maybe we should change the price.
You were already like on a very fast kind of pace. Like you just say usually would take a couple of weeks, but that's already very fast to deliver actually like a brand strategy.
Yes, it is.
And now you speed it up even more.
Yeah, exactly. In the brand agencies I used to work, I think rebrand projects like 6 months. We can deliver it in 6 weeks. But now that we can shorten the brand strategy part even more, and also we can do it every time. Before we would just skip it, we would wing it to meet the target. Yeah. But now we can do it properly every time, even for a very fast sprint project.
But just wanted to also add, customers also expect it, right? They don't want to take 6 months anymore. They do expect those things also really fast now.
Again, it has a lot to do with who we're working with, I think. So we need to compare apples to apples a little bit. Working with startups is a little bit different than working with more established company. So in that sense, I think startup always needs speed. But the point I think we want to really stress is that we aren't necessarily delivering faster now, we're just delivering more in the same time. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm saying when I said it's not how it started, but it turned out a lot better than I expected. I'd rather increase our output and outcome and quality with AI rather than just deliver the same or less quality in less time. Do you know what I mean? So instead of a race to the bottom, I think we can see AI as an enabler, an enhancer of what we already do, and that makes everything more interesting. At least that's how we've approached it, yeah.
And also, as a result, we're not really working less, or our team is not working less. It's not like we're not hiring this person because we have replaced it with this tool. We're just adding this extra layer of value to our offering for startups.
So I'm just going to echo what we've been saying, but I think before we worked together, I was doubtful of what AI could really do in terms of quality. I've always seen that it could replace cheap and quick design, but it cannot really rise to the expectation that we might have. So that has definitely changed. So as I'm saying, it really helps us to do more work, to do better work, as opposed to just doing less work. And for me, that's the biggest shift, I think. I really see that we can do tremendously better work thanks to the output that it produces. And I was not expecting this prior to working together, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we were a little bit, we were very skeptical at the beginning of the project. And you
and not very
us.
humble, right?
Not very humble, probably.
You cannot replace us, you know what I mean?
And I think that was partly because we were quite ignorant about AI, but also because we believe that the strategy part it had to be dependent on the individual skill, so it couldn't be automated. But we discovered that was the case because we didn't have a methodology. We didn't really understood from a meta perspective how to come up with these ideas. How do we come up with these ideas and how the strategy process happens? So it was very individual based. Like you take a talented strategist and he does his own cooking and he comes up with the right idea. So we didn't think that this could be automated.
So you're like saying that you first made sense of what is your actual workflow? That was the first step. Like I ask you, hey, how do you produce your high quality outputs? How do you run a project? And then you had to think for a moment, like, how do we actually do our things? And then you went on and formalized it. And then we were able to translate it into an automated workflow. That's my practice.
I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I think this is one of the big side effects of this project.
It's a side effect, and I think it's one of the learning as well, is the reason why AI can't replace us at first is because we haven't taught that AI what we do really, if that makes sense. Of course, like if we start without briefing it properly and without a methodology or anything, it's just gonna do what it's been trained with, and it's just the average of what you find out there. But once we put on paper exactly how do we do things, and we question how we come up with idea, how we come up with strategy, how we make different choices and so on, and we come up with a framework, then we are armed to teach it to the AI, and then it produces outstanding results. So yes, as a side effect, we had to rethink a little bit our workflow and our process and question how we do things. But I think it's mandatory. It also opened my eyes on how to work with AI, which is you can't just give it one simple prompt and expect outstanding results. First, you kind of have to do a lot of work a little bit of meta work on analyzing how you would do it, basically, and give it more principles. So the way I see it now is we are and growing our agency with more AI-inspired, AI-infused workflow. I think what we could do is design processes, really work on designing processes and ways of working, and then having agents and humans execute them. Yeah.
It's also necessary when you are instructing human colleagues to do a good work, to explain how would you like to have a project run. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's if you take, I would say, the creative process as a linear process. I know it's not, but you start with strategy, conceptual, and you end up with execution and more detail-oriented execution, even production. If you take that, I don't think there's a specific slice of the process that are most suited to be replaced by AI. But I think it's more in how we collaborate through that process. And I think the part that inherently remains human is just the decision making. And it's setting intention and making big choices. That I think is something that should stay in the hands of whoever is coordinating the work, whether it's a designer or strategist or even a founder potentially. Because AI has no intention, and design essentially is just the execution of intention basically. It's like you start out with something that you want to do. There are thousands of ways to execute that, and I think the AI can come up with a bunch of different solutions. But at the end of the day, if I present you option A, option B, option C, it remains your choice, you know what I mean, because it has a lot of implication. That make sense?
Yeah, and just to illustrate this, the tool that we built, it come up with great ideas, but also very unusable ideas, and it's up to us to judge which ones are relevant or not.
That stuck with me,
exactly
that you wanted breakpoints in between to feel that you are able to guide it in the right direction. And then more and more throughout the project we were able to let go of that a bit, let go of the control and say, look, maybe we just let it do what it wants to do and then see what the end result's gonna be. But that idea of the breakpoints, that really surprised me. And then your switch from saying that maybe more the kind of, let's say, busy work towards the end of implementation was maybe more an area where you thought automation could happen. But then you've said, okay, now let's look actually this, what we thought never can be replaced by non-humans, and that is the whole strategy kind of sense-making part. And now we are like at the end focused on that, and we let the AI deliver the strategy, which then allows you to maybe do other parts, which is what are the like human things, that the human parts of the process that you will not give away maybe.
There is a part that I'm curious about, because I think there is a huge conversation right now around taste. Is that the last thing that you cannot automate? And for us, of course, if we can bring some level of automation in the visual execution part, that would be very valuable. And the obstacle to that, I think, is that the AI, to produce good work or something that's relevant, it needs a lot of context. And for anything visual that is driven by taste, this context needs to be very well curated, with a lot of curated references in order to reach this taste. And a human could do that, but you need a lot of references to build this level of taste. And I'm curious, if it's just a matter of feeding with the right context, maybe we could do it at some point. But so far, I haven't seen anything like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's getting there pretty quickly, to be honest. We're always like trying new tools and see what it produces, and I think we're getting pretty close. There are some, I mean, I don't necessarily want to name them all, but there are some software out there that already produce, if we're talking like product design or UI, for example, it used to be pretty crappy and scrappy. Like it would work, but it wouldn't have taste, a lot of taste. It would be very average. But I think the latest iteration of some of those tools are pretty impressive, especially exactly for what you're mentioning, which is taste. It's to a certain extent, it's also pattern recognition. It's about, and I think that's what AI is really good at. But again, there's a part of taste which is also subjective, and that's what I mean when there's still a level of intention and choice making between three great execution, which to go for, rather than like between one good and two bad. The choice is quite easy, right? But at the end, really good taste comes down to like between three great execution that could all work. Which do you pick? And I think this is where our role is going to be, because it's not neutral. Those choices have implication. But right now we only see AI as he produces crap and he produces great stuff, just keeps the great stuff and teaches the crap. But I wouldn't say this is very strategic, or it's just filtering out the noise. I'm really curious to see what designers do when AI only produces good stuff. I don't think they will go away, just because not everybody can have the discernment. It takes a certain level of practice, and it has a lot of strategic consequences as well.
And everyone will be making good stuff, so you still need to
how do you stand out? Yeah. So that will be very interesting, I think. I'm really looking forward to getting there.
We have the workflow, 6 agents, and then the last one is the handover to a visual designer. That would be human, right? And then the visual designer comes into the picture and does their like magic. And it was also something that was quite surprising to me, like that idea, where I was maybe thinking, we could go all the way. You said this is the break point where we then really take over the work. And then I hope that the visual designer can even come back more to like human creativity and maybe even draw things with hand, or which previously was not the time for, maybe because there was other things to do to prepare the concepts to this point.
I'll start with, we said we had to rethink our workflow a little bit. So I think that was the biggest one. Maybe we can develop on that. You touched on moral, which is so interesting. I'm going to take that one, which is unexpected. But surprisingly, I think it was a little bit hard for me at some point. For some weird reason. Because when you keep working the way that you work without questioning it, without necessarily challenging yourself too much, you just repeat the same process and you get satisfactory outputs, and we're happy with it, the clients are happy, so we keep moving. But then this project forced us to look at what we are not doing and not doing well. And at some point it was a bit challenging for me to realize, yeah, we don't do that and we don't do that well, or it could be better, you know what I mean? And so I think I reached a little bit of a low point at some point where I realized, yeah, we aren't doing great for some reason. But then we ended up on a really high note when we realized we can fill in all those holes with this agent, and now we can do a lot better work than we used to. So yeah, that was an interesting roller coaster for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think we had a very humbling moment when you understand that. So AI is, the way I see AI is a really excellent junior person or junior designer. As everyone says, if you cannot explain things simply, that's because you don't know what you're doing. And this is what we realized. If we cannot explain it simply to you, that's because we don't really know what we're doing. We don't really have a recipe. We don't really have an IP. And yeah, thinking about this was humbling. It was difficult, honestly. It was very difficult. It took us a lot of time. But now I think we are much more confident to deliver
the
quality branding.
You don't want to be replaceable, like you don't want to be replicated. There's pride in their own work, and
it's also about grieving your job a little bit. Do you know what I mean? For me, that was more the process. Is at first, yes, it's hard to teach a robot to do what you do, but then when you graduate from this a little bit, you realize, okay, so if I let it do a certain level of thing, then what does my job become? And that's where it becomes a lot more interesting. So for example, if we just use that, look at execution, for example, which we haven't worked on, but it's a good example, is if you're not the one like actually pushing pixel, then you become a little bit more of an art director or a creative director. And I think it's the sooner you can detach yourself from what AI can do, the faster you can embrace new things. And so I think now we are happier with kind of a new role somehow, at least for the strategy part, where we're not necessarily doing the heavy lifting, but we do something maybe more interesting.
Grieving your job.
Yeah, I'm
as
sure.
it used to be. Maybe there is a word for that, no? Like AI job grieving.
Your job, like
grieving your job.
Grieving your job. So it's
accepting that your job as it used to be is over.
But if you think about it, my job didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. So that's also, if you put things in perspective, I don't think designers are going to go extinct. I think the kind of designers that exist today might, but they'll just evolve into something that will still be called designer, but that will do something a little bit different. And I think once you make that shift in your head, it's a lot more exciting to work with AI.
But it does feel like a breakup a little bit at some point.
Yeah. You grow up as owners, as managers of your firm, you are delegating to your employees, but also to the agents.
That's also something that's really struggling to do.
Yeah. But I really loved that way you framed it once, which said it started with automation project and then became this transformation project. And I'm really happy to be part of that journey of you growing up as a small design studio that wants to be bigger, wants to do more. It's really powerful.
That's very difficult because it would be very limiting to only look at the number of hours saved. Because
It's 400 right now, like a flow run.
We didn't save them. We didn't spend them.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different. Yeah. But yes, the number that the tool gives us is 400. It's like it does the equivalent of 400 hours of strategy work. So yeah, you could look at
the 4 hours, the 400 hours of strategy, but we also need to look at the value that we are adding to our offering, and that should enable us to expand our market and increase our prices over time.
I think that's the interesting number. Yeah. And it's not your question, but I think it's a really interesting challenge also for the business model of agencies. We don't charge based on rates, but I know a lot of agencies today charge based on hourly or daily rates. And if that's what you do, and then all of a sudden you just work less and less because of AI, then I think your business model has a bit of an issue. Whereas for us, we just added 400 hours of strategy to our project. Now we can reflect that on our price, going up, not going down. So if we price on value, then yes, I mean, definitely this project should enable us to charge more, not charge less.
But it's the question, like, how do you now take it and
Price
package
yourself.
it towards your clients, right? Like, how do you price this in now? Do you have already started to prepare proposals where you try to reflect that?
I think, as Apolline said earlier, it's not something we're necessarily going to be advertising. Now, we're not going to put on the cereal box, now comes with 400 hours of AI strategy. I don't think we're going to do that. However, I think we're much more confident in reaching a price level that we were not confident to propose before. Because we knew that our strategic process was very lean, because we worked with certain time and budget constraints coming from our clients and so on. But now that we've expanded, we've enriched the value of what we deliver, I think we're much more comfortable going up with our prices. Yeah. And which means maybe working with companies who have also bigger budget. That's something we're considering.
So we're actually preparing a drastic price increase for the next quarter.
Do you want to
Spoiler.
leave that in the video? Okay.
So better be quick if you want to work with them.
Sorry,
So much.
Yeah, can I jump on this one?
Yes.
Yes, but no. So that's the interesting one, I think. I think it works in tiers, and I think the sort of like quick and cheap layer of design is basically gone. So like $500 logo, for example, nobody's going to pay this. You can get an AI to do maybe better than what people who are charging this were doing. But I think middle to higher end, I don't think it's changing a lot. At least for us, it's not drastically changing what clients expect from us, really. There's just a general sense that the sort of, how to call this, the bar is higher in general.
Because basic delivery is expected to be of a certain quality, like probably even before any spending, like you expect like proper proposals, good concepts already kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So basically anyone can go on ChatGPT and do brand strategy and then go into any image generation software and make some creative out of this. If you have a little bit of taste and you can filter out the crap from the good stuff, then it's fine. Then that's why I'm saying like that part is in danger. But I think agencies deliver more than that, and that hasn't necessarily changed. Yeah.
I think it's lovely that now you can really double down on your taste and your quality efforts, no? And this gonna be the even bigger differentiator in the future, and I love that.
Yeah, I think that the market is going to polarize. Like you have the super low end cheap ones and the high end human crafted one at the extremes, and then you'll have a very qualitative middle. The low end will be replaced by AI completely. We won't need agency anymore. So it's going to be a tough time, but also very interesting because expertise is going to be even more valuable. And whether this is like the ability to create something distinctive, and also maybe with outcome, I wonder if agencies will be more judged on the outcome they can deliver. If you ask an AI to make a decent website, maybe they can do it, but how do you guarantee that this website is going to reach the right audience, is going to convert the right audience, the conversion rate, etc.? Yeah. You probably need to ask experts that have done it before to do it for you.
So you want to be measured in the quality of the output for your client. So what do they achieve with the new design in terms of business like goals? And this is, I think, the big differentiator then, if you are able to understand that.
Yes, and there is, because design, creative, and so on, they are very broad terms that encompass a lot of different things. I think, for example, when it comes specifically to, for example, things like branding, sometimes the outcome takes a little bit of time. So I think there are things that are super easy to measure very quickly. For example, you make a few tweaks in your product on your website, and you measure the conversion rate the next week, and if those tweaks worked.
Yeah.
Everything that's performance oriented like that, we're going to see a lot more probably automation in there as well, thanks to AI. But everything that takes a little bit more time, that's a little bit more subjective, or that's a bit about more of the long-term brand image, it's not as easy to judge within the next couple of weeks if that rebrand was effective.
The first advice is don't close the door because it's coming anyway and other people are going to explore it, so we should better explore it before the others, or at least at the same speed. That, to be honest, that was maybe the main reason why we started this project. We were not certain about the outcome, but we thought that we had to do something, to try something, and to see how far AI could go and how AI could help us.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, as we've been saying this repeatedly in this conversation, don't see AI only as an efficiency tool, as a time-saving tool. See it as a tool to do new things, to create better things, wonderful design, and it will change your perspective, and it will help you to really deliver more value for everyone, for your client, for your team, and even your job might be more fun at the end.
Yeah, and maybe one more advice that we talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's you need to clean your house before you bring in AI, I think. If the way that you orchestrate your projects, like a lot of creative businesses, is a bit chaotic, throwing AI into this is just going to increase the chaos, I think. So it requires a little bit of standardization, processes, workflow, methods, and so on, to make sure you have a stable sort of foundation, and then you can put AI on top of it and not only make it more efficient, but also increase the output. For us, we thought we were prepared. I think we're a little bit under-prepared. But maybe we're more prepared than a lot of other firms that we know, who really just wing it project after project, really lean into the sort of chaotic aspect of the creative work.
But I felt always, and why I didn't mind if the processes are in place yet, I always felt ambition from you both that you want to grow this as a business. You don't want to stay like when you started it. You want to expand and scale. And that ambition I understood. And I think this is why you are so motivated to lean into this.
Yeah, maybe that's a good way to summarize the approach that we've had. Is we ended up not using AI to do less, to work less hours, and so we used AI to produce more quality, more volume, more output, and so on. And maybe that's a mindset shift that can be helpful for creative firms. Don't use it as a way to, have more free time necessarily. If you're willing to put in the same volume of hours, but then you bring in AI, then it duplicates what you can do, and that gets very exciting. I feel like we just talked about this quite a lot. But if we step into more like the industry, not just like us, but I think I don't know where this is coming from, but like, I think it might be harder for junior people to break into the industry. The willingness we have to spend time training people, making mistakes, and when you get started, you need to do a little bit more repetitive, detail-oriented tasks in order to understand how things work and then deal with the big picture. And I'm afraid that in AI-infused creative businesses, there isn't that much room for junior people to do this. So that's something I'm not necessarily worried, but I'm curious. How do we rethink the junior position inside of creative firm? That's something we have to think about. So we will. I don't know. It's not necessarily the most important, but it's just one that came to mind. Do you have any other, Apolline?
That's not limited to the creative industry, but it's connected to the junior hire debate. Is what are the organizations look like in the future? Because if we're heading towards the true people organizations, it's going to be very different and way less fun than it is right now. And this is an ongoing debate that we have. What's the dream? Is it to have a if it's easy to stay like just like the few, like 3 of us,
Yeah.
3 or 4 people,
Yeah.
and then having a bunch of AI agents to do the work for us, or to have a huge team or a big team that uses AI to deliver much more value and much more project. And I think this is a big question that everyone has, and it's up to us as well. Like, what's the kind of workplace that we wanted to build?
Right. It was always like the best part of being in agencies was like the amazing fun that you have with the other people in the office. And then some of that went away when everybody had to work from home. And now we take away even more and we reduce the teams, and where's the fun that we all enjoyed?
Yeah, I think it's super important. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to switch to another one. Something that excites me but also is scary about AI is, I think it's connected also to junior roles maybe, but it's very tempting and dangerous to let AI make choices and set intentions. I think I touched on this a bit earlier, because it can produce, and that's connected to junior roles, because I think discernment and strategic choice making and so on takes time to mature in someone. You need exposure to a bunch of different problems, bunch of different clients and situations to be able to, I don't know, see the consequences of a creative choice for an organization. And it's very tempting to just ask ChatGPT and take the answer and be happy with it. But slowly, basically, we're outsourcing our creative intention. And I think that maybe is the most dangerous thing for our industry, is that we're growing a potentially, I don't know, the future generation of creative firms are really good at using AI, but not really good at actually having the discernment and the taste and everything that makes us, I don't know, good designers today. Does that make sense? I got a bit lost in there, but I think intention and creative discernment is something you should not outsource.
I think what we noticed was that it's always kind of pity when the way you're instructing the AI is too influential, that the AI won't necessarily think for themselves. It's really like it's gonna understand what you're hinting at, and it's giving you what you're hinting at. I felt that quite a lot, that we had to be cautious, because it then quickly gonna just somewhat do something that thinks gonna satisfy you in that moment, instead of really maybe delivering the truth, what's actually better.
Yeah.
You kind of say I like purple, then it's gonna come up with something purple.
No, absolutely, that's totally true. Every AI today is a people pleaser. Whatever you're aiming towards, it's just gonna lean into that.
Yeah.
So that's one danger. But I think the other one is also danger. If you stay too vague, and you're very vague with your expectations for a creative idea or a visual or anything, then whatever output the AI is going to generate becomes like reshapes your own intention. If I don't have any intentions for colors and then it generates a bunch of color palettes, now it framed my view on colors for the specific problem. Do you know what I mean? And I think this is a little bit of a danger. When you start out with, the less intention you have when you start out, the more you're letting the AI lead creatively. It has its pros and it has its cons as well. And I think finding the right balance is basically the challenge that probably every designer will have now working with AI.
Yeah. I have. Do you have anything to add, Abari, to that?
No, it's very interesting what you just said, because everyone, we tend to think that AI is amazing, is better for the ideation stage. But when you think about it, ideation and inspiration or intention is different. And if you only rely on the AI to do the ideation, then inspiration and intention, you're going to end up with something that's not your idea. So I guess our role as designer or agency is to give this inspiration and then have an AI help us execute, and not the other way around.
We were thinking very much like, where does the magic happen from your side? And then it was this elaborate brief that you are actually providing the AI with from the beginning, to say this is what we learned in client workshop, this is what we also make sense now of this workshop kind of content, and we are very selective with what we're feeding into the AI, and then let the AI run. But AI is not a starting point. Your brief, your first interactions with the clients is what sets the tone.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is super important. Of course, that's why we don't. Yeah, and I think for everything from just simple questions to ChatGPT all the way to like how we use this brand strategy agent, what you give it and what you don't give it. Of course, like the input is super important, but I think for us, the real secret sauce, or like the real magic, is in the workflow that it's going to go through. I think that's what took a lot of time to come up with, and the way we do brand strategy at Nowthen is not the way that other agencies do it, because of the type of clients we work with, because of what we believe in, what we think makes a good brand, and so on. And that workflow that it goes through, I think, is the real secret sauce. And I think probably every agency should work a little bit more on their proprietary framework and methodologies, because then when you get an AI, even a generic one, like an OpenAI API, just to go through it, the output that's going to generate is a lot closer to what is characteristic of the work of your agency. Then yes, of course, the brief matters for sure, but I think the workflow and the step is almost 90% of the job.
Yeah, because you need to have the recipe, the secret sauce, and the right ingredients. And if either one of these are not insufficient, it will not result in a good outcome. And it's really hard to nail these two.
Is there anything else that you want to mention?
We didn't really mention it, but because we were not super ready and super clear our process to come up with this brand strategy, I think it helped tremendously that you have a design background. So you were our sort of facilitator, thought partner in this process, and it made all the difference. Because I don't think anyone actually would go to you, hey, this is my exact process. It's 200% ready to automate. That's not possible, because in the course of the project, you realize all the blind spots that you have, all the things that you can't explain, that you don't know how you do it. And it really helped to have you on board and to detangle all this.
Yeah, and to push us also to question what we do. Again, it's not just automation. It's not just about outlining your workflow and having an AI go through it. It's also about changing your workflow to a certain extent. That's the part we didn't really anticipate, and you pushed for it. Sometimes we're like, oh no, we typically don't do that part in our process. And like, now we can, because AI is here, so we can. Why not do it? And I think, I don't know, that was surprising, that was interesting, and to just question a little bit how we do things and keep the door open to do more or differently, I think, was the most interesting part for me of the project.
Also, stand our ground when we thought it was very important, because you kept questioning us and sometimes challenging us quite a bit, and it helped us to understand what's not something that we should delegate to the AI, what's something that should be kept as a human task, and what should not. And we have more convictions now, I think.
I also want to mention that it's really refreshing, and I'm happy about the target audience that I picked with designers and design studio owners, agency owners, that it's really fun to work with you, because you have this explorative mindset and you understand this process of iteration, and you understand how to give feedback. So we were zoning out sometimes and really let it happen, and that was really like nice. Like, designers are the best clients. But yeah, let's see where the future brings us, and it's going to be exciting. But thank you so much, and looking forward to what else is to come.
Yeah, thanks for
having us,
and thanks for supporting us through this process. It's been great, honestly. We're super happy with where we are now.
Yeah, and excited to build more tools maybe in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're done.